Hey, Sports Ballers fans. It's been a little while, and we're sorry that we left you hanging, but we're back tonight for episode 277. We've had nearly 3 full weeks of play in the 2024 baseball season, so we've got a lot to discuss there. The play-in games for the NBA playoffs begin with 2 Western Conference matchups tonight. The Caps are playing to get into the playoffs, and the WNBA draft was last night. So stay with us for a jam-packed episode next on the Sports Ballers podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 277 of the Sports Ballers podcast. I'm Corey Puffett, your host for this evening, joined as always by Eric Meyer and Evan Ash. How you fellas doing tonight?
I'm doing all right.
Doing pretty good because my guy Colton Gauser just scored from first on a double. So, yeah.
There you go.
Points.
It's exciting playing baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Evan, how are you?
Doing good.
Yeah.
A little hungry, but, you know.
I just had Chipotle, so I'm not hungry.
I think that's where I'm going after this.
It's a good idea.
Well, no secret we've been off for a few weeks, but we're glad to be back and in the booth getting ready for next week's big show, our NFL Draft Special.
Kind of snuck up on me. I'm not ready at all.
Snuck up on me. Evan, you ready? Been grinding that tape with Hugh?
No, I don't live in a basement anymore, so I haven't been down in my basement lair grinding tape.
Gunner just hit a 2-run home run, though.
Yeah, I saw it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and so we'll see. I'll be ready for Thursday.
Hopefully I'll be ready for Thursday. Eric, you have to host.
Yeah.
Will you be
First
ready?
time ever.
Yeah,
Right?
it's always Evan.
And my first time hosting the draft show. That's going to be hilarious. So pray for your boy.
Oh, okay.
This is going to be a disaster as I eat popcorn like Stephen Colbert.
A lot going on in the sports world. We've actually got a quad box in my office going right now. Got the Orioles game on. Adley Rutschman's up with the O's leading 3-0 over the Twins. Got the Yankees game about to start. The Pirates game about to start because one of my fantasy pitchers is going for them tonight. The Capitals are playing to get into the playoffs. So let's start with hockey because we don't cover hockey a whole lot. Just briefly, want to talk a little bit about the Caps and their situation. Tonight, going up against the Philadelphia Flyers, the 3 playoff spots in the Atlantic Division of the Eastern Conference have already been clinched. The 3 playoff spots in the Metropolitan Division have been clinched. The Tampa Bay Lightning have already clinched as the first wild card, so that leaves 1 spot left. And the 2 teams who are really in contention for that primarily are the Capitals and the Red Wings. The Penguins could sneak in. I don't know if there's a way that the Flyers sneak in with a win tonight. I guess they would need the Wings and the Penguins to both lose at that point. But the Capitals have the inside track. They are in a win-and-in situation tonight. Despite having 1 fewer win than the Red Wings, they have 4 more wins when you look at when you eliminate overtime and shootout wins. And that's the first tiebreaker after points, which they're currently tied for at 89 points. So a big game tonight for the Caps. Eric, you've been watching much Caps hockey?
I've kept up with them. I haven't watched as much as usual just because, despite the fact that they're in playoff contention, as you see from the goal differential, the team stinks.
This was the second year in a row that they were sellers at the trade deadline.
Yeah, and, last year they didn't make it. This year it looked like for most of the second half they weren't going to make it, and then it looked like they were going to make it, and then they lost 5 in a row, and then there's like, okay, well, they're toast, and then suddenly they're back, and now they're in a win-and-in situation. I mean, we say it about all sports, just make the tournament, but that's really the truth about hockey is you just got to get in and you've got a shot, right? Like, anybody can win the Stanley Cup once you're in there. 1 seeds lose to 8 seeds regularly. It happens every couple of years. It's not a rare occurrence at all. So if the Caps get in, I mean, do I think they're a good hockey team? No. Do I think that they're going to go on a run? No, because even when they were really good, they didn't go on runs. They usually lost in the second round. But they've got as good a shot as anybody at that point because, there's no more record that we worried about. It's playoff hockey. It's about, can your goaltender get hot and can you get a couple of clutch plays from your third and fourth line? The Caps probably won't be able to do that, but maybe the other teams won't be able to either, and you end up squeaking out some overtime wins. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the goal differential earlier. The Caps are at -38, which is the third worst in the Eastern Conference.
Oh.
Just as far as scoring goals, the Capitals have 218 goals this season. Guess how many teams in all of hockey have fewer than them?
I guess 5.
4.
Okay.
Guess how many of them are in the Eastern Conference?
0.
0 is right.
Yeah.
They have the fewest goals in the Eastern Conference, and yet they have pretty good shot at making it into the playoffs here if they can win. If they win tonight, they're in. And as you also mentioned, Eric, the best teams in hockey don't always win in the playoffs. I mean, in the last 8 seasons, the team that has won the President's Cup, the number 1 team in hockey, has not made it beyond the second round.
Yeah, the President's Trophy winner never wins the cup. Like, trust me, the Caps won it 3 times, and they didn't win the cup in any of those years.
They didn't make it past the second round in any
No,
of those years.
because they've only made it past the second round once, and it wasn't one of the years where they won the President's
Cup,
Trophy.
yeah.
So, or you were even the top seed in the East. Like, even there were a couple of years where the Caps were the number 1 seed in the East, but they weren't the best record in all of hockey, and they still didn't make it out of the second round. So, seeding is not that meaningful. Home ice is even less meaningful. Like, it's not hard to win on the road, it seems, in hockey. Like, you just go in there and play your game. Even though there actually is a tactical advantage of being at home, you get last change, which I don't expect you guys to know what that means, but I know what it means. But like when there's a stoppage of play and you're allowed to change men on the ice, the home team gets to see what who the road team puts out there to match up. So that should mean something, but it doesn't when it comes to wins and losses. It seems like road teams win all the time in the playoffs. And sometimes some years they have better than a 500 record as the road team. So.
Sounding like the the Rangers last year in the playoffs.
Yeah, it sounded like
They
the
won all
Astros
the
the
road
whole
games.
season. They couldn't win at home at all.
And this season, they've already been terrible at home.
Yeah,
the
we'll
Astros.
get to the
Terrible
Astros. We will be
They
talking
suck.
about them tonight.
Yeah.
Let's talk briefly about last night's WNBA draft. I didn't really watch a whole lot of it. I caught the tail end, but I did check out where everybody went because this was kind of a big deal this year. I mean, how many times has there been a WNBA draft where more than 5 of the names were recognizable to kind of your average basketball fan? Not very many. But last night we saw Caitlin Clark go number 1 to the Indiana Fever. Cameron Brink went number 2 overall to the LA Sparks. Camila Cardoso from South Carolina went to the Chicago Sky, as did Angel Reese 4 picks later. Aaliyah Edwards from UConn is now a Mystic. So a lot of players who people recognize. The girl from Virginia Tech, Elizabeth Kitley, who missed all this season because of a severe injury, but she's a really good player. She wound up going at the end of the second round to the Las Vegas Aces. I mean, imagine missing your senior season in college basketball and you get to go to the 2-time defending WNBA champion. That's a pretty good deal, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, of course, a lot of attention has been brought, particularly on social media, to the contract situation and the fact that over the 4-year contract that Caitlin Clark got, even in her 4th year, she's not going to be making $100,000 in the WNBA.
Yep.
This has been a known issue. If you're getting upset about this now, it just shows that you haven't been paying attention this whole time. Obviously we know that this is a revenue situation, but you can't complain about this if you're not going to the games. And this also is why so many women's basketball players go overseas during the WNBA offseason. This is why Brittany Griner was in Russia.
Yep.
All these people out here, why was she even over there? This is why.
Yeah, because they get paid more money over there to play overseas. Like, they make legit livings, like in the millions of dollars to play in places like Russia, which, it's kind of unusual that there's more of a market, it seems, for women's basketball somewhere other than the United States, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah. So, I think that this is kind of this could potentially be a really big year for the WNBA in terms of what the future of the league is going to be, and whether there is a hope of it gaining more recognition and potentially even starting to turn a profit where you can see these salaries become more fair for these players. Again, this is a huge draft class, and you've got some more really good players who are going to be coming up pretty soon. Paige Beckers notably was not in this class. She could have declared. She decided to stay at UConn for another year. So she now gets a chance to kind of see what happens here. And if this has a fairly quick impact, maybe next year, if and when she goes number 1 overall, maybe that number will be a little bit more favorable for her. We'll have to see. I know that Rashawn and I have talked about we want to go and try and catch a couple of Mystics games this year, particularly when the Aces and when Indiana comes to town. We're really excited that Aaliyah Edwards is with the Mystics, and obviously the Aces are a draw as a team, and Caitlin Clark is a draw as an individual.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, we'll see how things go with the WNBA, but the other big news there is that they're adding a 13th team, not this year, but next year. There will be an affiliated team for the Golden State Warriors.
Okay.
Joining the WNBA as a 13th team.
Very cool.
So, that'll be really cool. And the WNBA has been as large as 16 teams. We'll see if that ever happens again. Fingers crossed. Eventually, they bring back the Houston team, because it's kind of disappointing when they were no longer in the league, considering they won the first 4 titles.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. I saw that the commissioner of the WNBA had a laundry list of cities for potential expansion. So there seems to be some belief that the growth will be more than just this one team in the Bay Area. It might continue to Philly or other places like that. So let's hope that that's the case, because it struck me as strange because I was used to a 16-team WNBA. I found out a couple weeks ago, just kind of reviewing previous WNBA drafts, when there was only like 12 people selected per round, and I was like, does that mean there's only 12 teams? That's what it suggests. And I looked it up. I was like, oh, there's only 12 teams. I thought there were more than that. I thought there were 16. So getting that number up, which would suggest that the league is more healthy and there's more interest, that you can maintain more franchises. Obviously, that's a good thing. But the key is people have to want to tune in, and people have to put their money where their mouth is a little bit. If you want to talk about, how, the women are being discriminated against. Well, we know what the issue is, by and large, is the fact that there's no revenue for higher salaries, and the only way that number goes up is if people tune in and people pay money to go see them play. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the NBA and the NFL, a lot of their revenue does not come from even just from ticket sales. It comes from TV revenue.
TV is the biggest piece.
TV is the biggest piece. So even if you're not going to take the time to go out to those games, if they are on TV in your area, tune into the games.
Yeah, it's eyeballs is what's going to move the needle here.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's already happened. So I pulled up a tweet from Joe Pompliano. WNBA draft averaged 2.4 million viewers on ESPN, a 300% increase from the previous all-time high.
The numbers already were going up post 2020, and that's only going to increase, presumably, with more interest in the college game, maybe leaking over towards the WNBA. Because I know I'm a lot more interested, because I know a lot of these players, and I followed them in the NCAA tournaments the last couple of years. I'm like, I want to see what they do at the next level. I don't want to lose track of them, because if they entertained me as college students,
they should entertain you more. Yeah, it should work kind of the same way as basketball, where these players.
It's men's basketball, yeah.
Sorry, yes, thank you. Goodness.
Yeah, real basketball. Jeez.
Did I say real?
No. That was somebody.
I didn't think so.
Somebody said that.
Wait a second.
That
doesn't sound like me.
There was an out of context moment on ESPN where they were showing a highlight of a previous WNBA game, or maybe it was a college game. I don't remember, but it was a women's basketball game, and the anchor says, Now let's get back to real action, and it was a men's game, but he meant because this is live.
He meant live action.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
everybody was like, "What? You're saying the women's game wasn't a real basketball game?" It's like, no, guys, that wasn't it. That wasn't it.
Oh man.
Yeah, that was like.
But yes,
works like
in men's
basketball.
basketball, they are at their best in the NBA. So
Typically,
it should
yes.
follow that.
I hope so.
Well, yes, typically, unless you're Zion Williamson.
But when he's on the court with balls,
Oh.
you just gotta be on the court.
Hopefully, it would be the same case in the women's game, that they're only going to get better, and that Caitlin Clark only has an upward trajectory from here. So let's move on to the association, the men's NBA. We're gonna have to start saying the MNBA.
The MenBA.
The MenBA, I like that.
That's pretty good.
I like that. The MenBA. I'm gonna start using that. We've got play-in action.
Tonight.
So tonight
Maybe starting
is the
now.
Western Conference. Tomorrow is the Eastern Conference. So the Wizards are playing tomorrow, right?
No.
No,
They're
because
done.
they finished with 15 wins,
Oh,
one
wow.
ahead of the Detroit Pistons, who, hey, congratulations, you are tied for the most wins by a Detroit team this year
Yikes.
with the Lions, who play a lot less games.
That's pretty sad.
Well, what are the Red Wings doing?
Oh, fair. The Red Wings are tied with. They have like 38 wins, 39 wins,
Okay.
40
Yeah,
wins, something like that.
they've got it. They've got
They-
more.
yeah, they
wins,
have more wins.
I know the Tigers are still in single digits.
Yeah,
and
Tigers are still in single digits.
You mean Spencer Torkelson's not lighting the league on fire?
neither is Javi Baez.
I
Oh,
dropped
well.
Spencer Torkelson tonight.
Good.
Oh.
He's bad.
So tonight we've got Western Conference action. The 8 seed Lakers at the 7 seed Pelicans. Some people out here suggesting that the Lakers should throw this game.
Yeah, some people, your boy Greeny, Evan, come get your boy.
Wait, it's the play-in now?
It's the play-in.
Yeah.
Why is Greeny saying they should lose on
Okay,
purpose?
so the idea, I guess, that Greeny and not just Greeny, I won't single him out, but he's the one that I saw say it, and he's on ESPN, so
Yes.
he's going to be the most prominent one. He and others suggested that the Lakers would be better served to just rest Anthony Davis and LeBron James for tonight's game against the Pelicans. And I'm sorry, I'm being distracted by gigantic Oriole home
What?
runs.
Westberg.
over the big wall.
Westberg over the big wall.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's 6-0 A's. Anyway, so the suggestion was that they basically tank this game, rest their stars, and then take their chances with a home date against either the Warriors or the Kings, who are playing the 9-10 game at 10 o'clock tonight. And then if they win that one, they would be the 8 seed, which means they would draw Oklahoma City in the first round. Whereas if they win tonight against the Pelicans, they would have to go to Denver. And, well, we saw how it worked out when they had to play Denver last year.
I didn't see.
Let me list the number of games that the Lakers have won since last April against Denver. Did I miss any?
No.
Like they
Oh,
haven't.
no.
They didn't
You
win
didn't miss a
any.
single one.
They went 0 for 4 this regular season, and they went 0 for 4 in the playoffs last year.
Now, can you list the number of games that they have won against the Kings or the Warriors this season?
They won one against. I think they beat the Warriors once.
Yeah.
They went 0 for 4 against the Kings and 1 and 3 against Golden State.
So not much better odds there against teams that are behind them here. But also, why would you say, like, let's go face the 1 seed instead of the 2 seed? I get it. It's Denver. They're the defending NBA champions. They've got Nikola Jokic.
Mm-hmm.
But the Thunder have more wins than them this
No,
season.
they don't. They're tied.
Oh, they're tied?
Yeah, they're
well, they
both-
had the tiebreaker.
Yeah, they had the tiebreaker. They're both 57 and 20.
In any case, they're also a good team. Like, just win.
Well-
Like, there's no guarantee that you win the second play-in game just because you rest your guys for the first one.
No, and the thing is, you're foregoing an opportunity to get in the tournament.
Yes,
right.
that's the most
You
important thing.
Like, the
Yeah.
benefit of being in the 7-8 game is you got 2 shots at this thing, and you're saying, we're only going to take 1. And honestly, it's so uncompetitive, and that's why I called Greenberg out, because I'm just like, that sounds like someone who didn't actually play high-level sports.
Oh,
Jackson
Jackson
Holliday,
Holiday's
Drew
on
Walk.
base.
Yeah, Drew Walk. And so like, it bothered me to hear somebody who talks about sports for a living suggest that people not compete. And this isn't the same situation as sort of kind of finagling your way into position by maybe not caring about games late, because you're already in the tournament at that point. Like if the Clippers said we'd rather draw the Timberwolves than the Mavs, so let's try to lose. Okay, fine. I mean, I think that's lame too, but at least you're already in. Here you're suggesting, hey, let's intentionally lose a potential get into the playoff game. A game of serious consequence for us. It's nonsense. And
now, is he going to come out and give the same BS excuse of, oh, I was just kidding. Obviously, I was joking around, because he's done that before.
Greeny has?
What?
Yeah, he had another weird take like a few weeks ago, and then like the next day he's on ESPN talking about, I was just kidding. Like it was obvious that I was joking.
I don't recall this.
I don't remember that
I'd have
either.
to check the
I'll have to go
tape
back
on
to
this.
look at the context.
I mean, it's possible that something like that happened, but like even if I ignore the gross lack of competitiveness that idea entails, I would want to face the Nuggets earlier than
about
later.
UConn, they would make the NBA playoffs.
Oh,
Came back the next day and said he was joking.
That was nonsense. Yeah.
I don't think he was joking.
He said they would get into the play-in, I think.
Yeah. I don't think he was joking though.
I don't think he was either. And then he
He was
pretended
just trying to
was.
cover himself.
Yeah, because he said something dumb.
Yeah, so he's gonna do the same thing here.
But I would rather face the Nuggets early, because if you're the Lakers, from your perspective, you've got an aged LeBron James and you've got a frequently injured Anthony Davis. Both of them are healthy right now. What's
and
more
once you're in the
likely?
playoffs, you can't rest these guys. Like
course
you
not.
can't take days off. You have
No.
to play them every game, so they're only gonna wear down over the course of the playoffs.
But I'd rather have, like, who's more likely to be worn down in a month if they were to play in the Western Conference Finals? The Nuggets or the Lakers?
The Lakers.
Yeah, let's figure it out, okay? The Nuggets have all their dudes in their prime. They're deeper, they're more durable, and they're better. You want to face them early when you're a little bit fresher, and when maybe you could just knock them off when they're sleepwalking a little bit. That's what you want to do. If you try to draw them at the Western Conference Finals point, they're going to be a well-oiled machine. If your hope is that somebody else knocks them off, well, then why don't you just knock them off, right? Like, if your thought is, okay, I can go, have somebody else beat the Nuggets for me and then I'll beat them, why do you think you would beat them if they're good enough to beat the Nuggets? It's not just a matchup issue. The Nuggets are who they are because they're good. They're the favorites to win the West for a reason, which means you're probably going to have to go through them if you want to get to the NBA Finals. So just play them when it's best suited for you, which is right now.
Yep. The 10-9 game is Warriors at Kings. The winner will play the loser of the Pelicans-Lakers matchup to decide who plays the Thunder. So one of those two teams is going to be just eliminated tonight immediately. And I think we're all hoping that will be the Kings and not the Warriors.
Well, yeah, because we like the Warriors better. But the Kings are fun. Like, the Kings... Again, this is why it's ridiculous for the Lakers to say, hey, let's tank this, because the Kings and the Warriors, aside from the fact that they beat them, we know they've got good players. We know that you're going up against either Steph Curry or De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. You're not going to have an easy time beating either of them, so why would you sit there and say 48 minutes, our season's on the line because we gave away a game after we just crushed the Pelicans the other night? It just wouldn't make any sense, but the Warriors are favored in this game despite the fact that it's in Sacramento, which I thought was surprising. But I also know that the Warriors, frankly, have been really, really good when they've had their full complement of players this year.
They've been here
Draymond's
so
been
many
allowed to play.
times. They've had so much success in the playoffs. They know how to win in these situations.
Yeah, like the Kings last year played one round of playoff basketball against the Warriors, and they got beat. And they lost 2 games at home where they were supposed to be basically invulnerable. Clearly they were not. But I think there's a very good chance the Warriors do win that game. But it's a one-game playoff. Anything can happen. And then I think that if the Warriors draw the Pelicans or the Lakers, I think it's going to be tough for them to win because they have to go on the road, and both of those teams have size that can give Golden State trouble. So I'm not sure they make it into the tournament. And frankly, it's ridiculous they're even in this position because had they just taken care of business and not had their supposed second-best player getting suspended for a third of the season, they probably would have been a top 4 or 5 seed, and they wouldn't be in this position. They could be squaring off against an injured Clippers team and have a really good shot to get Oklahoma City, who is presumed to be vulnerable as a 1 seed because they're so young. They could have a pretty doable path to the Western Conference, but guess what? You're stuck in the play-in. Like, maybe you'll get there, but you got to win 2 straight elimination games on the road, and then you got to go play Oklahoma City right away. That's tough.
Yeah. Rodon is irritating me right now because he's thrown 22 pitches and gotten 1 out in the first inning.
He hasn't
And he
given
just
many
had
runs yet.
and he just had a 12 pitch at bat against Bo Bichette.
And the Caps just gave up a goal.
And he walked him. So.
Oh, no, the ref is waving off the goal, so never mind.
Refs waving off the goal. The Orioles are up 7-0. Adley Rutschman
is making it out.
Ooh. Try to put that right through the middle, but pitcher was there.
Chris Paddock with a, I don't know if we can say that on here, but it's not good.
Yeah, it's not good.
Poopy pants.
Let's talk Eastern Conference, because those playing games will be tomorrow. We'll start with the 8-7 game, where the Heat are playing in Philadelphia against the Sixers. The winner of that matchup will play against the number 2 New York Knicks. So, hey, the New York Knicks, number 2 in the East.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I mean they stayed healthy and they played well. I mean that's kind of cool. I don't know why this wasn't ruled a goal. I'm not sure, but whatever. That's good for them. The Knicks draw a really tough opponent right out of the gate because you're getting a healthy Embiid. Presumably he stays healthy for the play-in game if they win, or you get the playoff Heat. So
Jimmy Butler.
And they got the playoff Heat last year. What happened?
Yeah, you don't want to see playoff Jimmy.
Yeah,
Jimmy is a different Jimmy.
Or playoff Spo. You don't want to see any of that. Like, that's trouble. So, the Knicks, for all their hard work this season to battle their way up to the 2 seed, they get either the Sixers or the Heat. That's brutal.
But you're not going to play terrible teams in the playoffs.
No,
right?
but
it's the postseason. The Wizards aren't playing anymore.
Normally, the Eastern Conference, you would figure the 7 seed is a walkover, though. That's usually how it works.
8 seed.
Yeah, but instead you don't get the luxury of that. I'm
sorry, that's too bad.
I agree. I don't feel bad for them. I mean, a big part of the reason why they're the 2 seed is because they're in the East, right? If they were in a real conference, they would not be the 2 seed. So
real conference,
I don't feel bad for them. Like the Eastern Conference is a joke.
Who do you think wins this game, Heat or Sixers?
I'm taking Philly. I think that Embiid, when he matches up with another prominent big man, and he's healthy, he tears them up. Like even a guy as good as Bam Adebayo on defense, it's just he's too tough to stop.
He's a guy who kind of plays to the level of his competition. You feel like?
I feel like when the game is specifically catered to, okay, the other team relies on their big man to slow down the opponent's offense, and you just say, okay, well, we've got a guy that can break that, and it's Embiid. Like, we see the same thing when he goes head-to-head with Rudy Gobert, or when he goes head-to-head with Nikola Jokic even. I mean, Jokic isn't meant to be a defensive stopper, but if you've got that matchup where you can just pick on that big man, especially one that's supposed to be a good defender, it's such an edge that nobody else really has. It's a big part of the reason why the Nuggets win so much is because they don't usually have to go through a team that has a big man that can counter Jokic's offensive firepower. It's typically someone like, it's not somebody like Embiid because they never get that far. But there's nobody in the West that can replicate that type of offensive firepower. But if Embiid can go out there and ball out, which there's no reason to think he shouldn't be able to right now, he's had plenty of rest and he's healthy, then that should be that. But we'll see. I mean, the Miami Heat are no joke. We've talked about that too.
The loser of that game is going to play the winner of the 10-9 matchup, where the Atlanta Hawks are playing at the Chicago Bulls.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on that game? Are either of these teams dangerous if they make it into the playoffs?
The Hawks are dangerous, I think, to a play-in team like the loser of Heat-Sixers, because I think everybody wants to see the Heat and the Sixers get into the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So the loser of that game, you hope, and probably should be favored to beat whoever wins the 9-10. But the Hawks have Trae Young, and Trae Young can be a little spicy, especially in a playoff atmosphere. The Hawks made it to the conference finals a few years ago.
They did.
That happened.
Yeah.
I didn't make that up. They beat the Sixers to do so. We saw Ben Simmons refuse to dunk on Trae Young in that series. Like that happened. So, like I wouldn't rule them out to sort of throw a monkey wrench in the plan. And if they somehow got the 8 seed and were playing Boston, I think Boston would beat them, but it would be annoying enough for the Celtics to have to deal with them because we've seen the Hawks play them tough consistently. They'd be a tough out. The Bulls, I don't think they're just a low ceiling team. I don't believe in them at all.
Okay. So let's talk about the teams that are already in the playoffs. We'll start in the West. Already mentioned number 1 seed Thunder, who are likely going to face a difficult challenge against whoever they wind up facing in the first round, whether that be the Warriors, Kings, or the loser of the Lakers-Pelicans game. It's going to be one of those 3 teams. and it's probably going to be a challenge for them. It's the Western Conference was kind of back to being the Western Conference that we've grown up knowing and loving, where it was the dominant conference this year.
Yeah, last year was sort of a blip where it looked like the East might be catching up, and that immediately turned around. It's like basically since Michael Jordan retired, the Western Conference has dominated the East. So yeah, it's like the Oklahoma City Thunder. Again, they earned their number 1 seed, no doubt, but the West is so tough, and you've got such circumstantial goofiness that led to the Lakers being where they are, and especially where the Warriors are. Like, do you want to face this Golden State Warriors team as a 1 seed, as an 8? That's brutal, because the Warriors won like 2/3 of their games once they got Draymond Green back from his lengthy suspension. Like, that's not a team you want to mess around with. Now, I've got issues with the Warriors roster construction.
I also have issues with the fact that Draymond Green can't seem to stop getting kicked out of games.
Yes, that's also concern. And I have an issue with the way Steve Kerr has handled this lineup. But that still doesn't mean you want to play them. I mean, they
You definitely don't want to play Steph Curry.
You don't want to play Steph Curry. You don't want to face Draymond Green either. I mean, as big of a headache as he is for his own team, he's also a headache for the opponent a lot.
And they've still got Wiggins, right?
Yes.
And, Wiggins has turned up in the playoffs before. He could do it again.
Yes, and there's also the fact that they've got a couple of rookies that they drafted that were just ready to roll out of school, and they've contributed a lot. Klay Thompson seems to have embraced his role as sort of a sixth man type of guy at this point in his career. And Chris Paul can be a nuisance for young players. He's
How impactful was he this year? I felt like I didn't really hear a whole lot about him, and when I did watch Warriors games, I didn't really notice him on the floor very much.
He had his moments when operating with the bench unit. He also missed a lot of time. I think he broke his hand.
Okay.
So, and he struggled in lineups where he shared the court with Steph because, it should be pretty obvious. You don't want to have a 6'2" Steph Curry and a 6'0" Chris Paul, who are both, by the way, over 36 years old, as your backcourt. You're not going to get too many stops with those guys as your defense out front. But but he could certainly have an impact in a role as a bench backup point guard type. So I think that the Warriors could be trouble. But I could also see this Warriors team that has been so ridiculously up and down, just laying an egg in a playing game and just not even being a factor, or just getting straight up gentlemen swept or something by the Oklahoma City Thunder, who had their number this year.
Got the Flyers on a power play right now, and the Capitals are not as dominant in killing power plays as they used to be, but fortunately the Flyers are the worst at converting them in the NHL this year, so hopefully...
I'm glad you did some research, because I had no idea that was the case.
Thankfully they posted it up
I
on
also
the screen.
I also just watched the Flyers clear the puck for the Caps. So,
They did.
Yeah, that was helpful.
I don't know
And
what
now,
any of this
Now they're
means.
doing it again.
we've got a shorthanded chance here, and it
didn't
gets
get it.
stopped. But hey,
Let's move on to the 3-6 matchup in the West. The 3 seed, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Glad to see them back in form and playing well against the number 6 seed Suns, who honestly I was kind of surprised the Suns even managed to stay out of the play-in tournament, because the Suns were not that interesting or competitive this year.
it came down to the last couple of games. The Pelicans slid back, and I think the Suns beat the Pelicans in a head-to-head, either in the penultimate or the last game of the season. So that kind of led to them getting the 6th spot. And I think they beat the Timberwolves in the last game of the season, which was, I guess it had some meaning for the Timberwolves, because they were duking it out with Oklahoma City and Denver for a top 3, or for one of the top 2 seeds, and they ended up falling back to the 3. But now they have to go head to head with the Suns, who again kind of had their number during the regular season. They've got Karl Anthony Towns, who's coming off of an injury. He played 2 games, but he didn't play particularly well in those.
Yeah, he had missed 18 games before that.
Yeah, and so there's a little bit of concern there about how effective he can be in the post and just in the post. So, and also you have to mention Karl Towns is kind of not known as a playoff performer, right? We've seen him get rattled and get in foul trouble a lot. So I have some worries about him. I have some worries about Rudy Gobert, who gets turned into a sucker a lot in the playoffs. And I don't really buy into this Timberwolves team. But at the same time, they've made the playoffs each of the last 2 years. They didn't really push the Nuggets, but they played competitively against them in that 5-game series last year. But now they're one of the higher seeds. Now it's time to do something. Now you got to win a series now. You've got to take that next step and progress here. And while the Suns team is star-studded with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and Brad Beal, they're not deep and they don't play any defense, and there's just no excuse to lose to them because the Suns, despite their star power, they are who they are. You are what your record says you are. It's not like, oh my God, they had so many injuries during the season. Brad Beal didn't play some, okay, but Booker and KD played most of the games, and they still weren't. They just weren't that good, as predicted by your boy. I didn't think they were going to be that good. The Timberwolves should be able to beat them, but the Timberwolves have a bunch of flaky playoff performers. The only guy I trust them to bring it is Ant-Man, but Ant-Man's 22. Like, Ant-Man is not the best version of Ant-Man, presumably, yet. Meanwhile, we know we're getting the best version of Devin Booker, and we're getting at least somewhat close to the best version of Kevin Durant. And I don't know if he's going to have the help he needs, especially if he has some struggles.
4-5 matchup is the LA Clippers and the Dallas Mavericks. Kawhi Leonard missed the final 8 games of the regular season with right knee inflammation, and we don't know what his status is going to be. Put here, this has never happened before.
Yeah. Never ever. Kawhi Leonard has never had an injury. This is unprecedented. Can't believe it. Mm-hmm. I'm shocked that Kawhi Leonard is
flabbergasted.
It just happened last year and the year before and the year before.
Didn't he sit out a
trying
whole
to see how long it
season
would take
somewhere in there?
for your facial expression to break there.
I'm keeping it going. He hasn't had a healthy playoff since 2020 in the bubble, which by the way they blew a 3-1 lead to the Nuggets in the bubble and got Doc Rivers fired. And other than that, his previous healthy run was their championship run in Toronto.
Yeah.
But before that, 2018 missed the entire season basically. 2017 got injured in the playoffs. So, this is a recurring theme. And if Kawhi Leonard's not out there, this Clippers team had already kind of slipped. They did what the Clippers always do. They looked awesome in the first half of the season. Everybody's buying into the Clippers because they traded for James Harden. Russell Westbrook was effective off the bench, right? Paul George is a good player. Kawhi Leonard was healthy for most of the season. And now Kawhi looks like he ain't going to be healthy again for the post. And they're going against this Mavericks team who is actually pretty good. Luka Doncic is going to get MVP votes this year. It's just, I feel like I got the Mavs. I got the Mavs in this one. We watched the Mavs Clippers at Sean's wedding. And that series was awesome. This Clippers team is not as good as that team. And this Mavericks team is better than that Mavericks team that lost to them. I know we love to make fun of Kyrie Irving, but he's good at basketball, so he's going to have an impact on this series, and I think that's going to be a difference.
Who do you have coming out of the West?
Oh, you want me to do that right now?
Yeah.
Oh, Denver.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see. Yeah, it's got to be Denver.
Okay. So move on to the East. We didn't really talk about who the number 1 seed is, so let's talk about them a little bit. It's the Boston Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably not going to face anybody in this first round who can challenge them.
Nope.
Will they face anybody in the Eastern Conference who can challenge them for a bid in the NBA Finals?
Maybe the playoff Heat, right? That's possible just because we saw it happen last year and the year before and two years prior to that in the bubble, right? The Miami Heat seem to just find a way to be competitive and oftentimes beat this Celtics team.
But the only way that likely happens is if the Heat lose the game tomorrow and then beat either the Hawks or the Bulls, which you've already said, if the Hawks beat the Bulls, the Hawks could end up making it into this tournament and instead playing against the Celtics.
Yeah, where I don't think the Celtics are going to have it.
Even if the Heat win tomorrow and they'd play the Knicks, say they beat the Knicks, are they going to win the next round to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals where they would play the Celtics? It'd be kind of difficult to expect a 7 seed or an 8 seed to make it past 2 rounds of the playoffs.
Yeah, but we said that last year and they did it. So that's the only thing. I don't think it would happen, but I
can't count
for the purposes of this conversation. That's the one team that if I'm the Celtics, can we not play the Heat again? Because we barely beat them in 7 in 2022. We barely beat them in we didn't beat them last year. We straight up lost. And then 2020 in the bubble they lost to the Heat. So this is a recurring thing for them. But other than that, Bucks don't worry me. I don't trust them. We'll talk about them a little bit when we talk about their series. But the Knicks, no. And the Magic or Cavs, no. And the Sixers, we've seen them turn into a pumpkin every time they go up against Boston. So I don't think so. I mean, the Boston Celtics won 64 games this year. They were by far and away the best team in the NBA. And it wasn't just a case of, oh, they got lucky to play in the Eastern Conference. They went 23-7, I believe, against the West. So they were real deal against everybody. Like, they were the dominant team in the league this year.
The Knicks get to play either the Sixers or the Heat.
Yeah, that's not good news for them.
You think they're going down in the first round?
I think so. Yeah, I think they're going to lose.
3 seed Bucks, the 6 seed Pacers. There's some questions about Giannis's status for this series. He has a strained calf and may miss some time. How is that going to affect their chances against Indiana?
Well, obviously it will dramatically impact them because Giannis is their best player and one of the 3 or 4 best players in basketball. Honestly, I think it would be insane for Giannis to play in this series. I really, really do. Just because he's coming off of a calf strain where he crumpled to the court and everybody thought he blew out his Achilles.
Oh.
And fortunately that appears to have been averted, but I seem to recall another great player having a calf injury and then coming back to play a few weeks later and then blowing out his Achilles in the NBA Finals in front of Drake and everybody. And that was Kevin Durant.
Yep.
So, like, you might want to play it safe with this. And let's be honest. If you believe in this Bucks team as a legit Eastern Conference contender, then they should be able to find a way to get past this 6-seed Pacers team, without having to extend Giannis out there. Like, Damian Lillard should be able to get this done. He's presumed to be the best player in the series, right? Like, Tyrese Halliburton's great, but Dame's supposed to be better than him. Moo.
But Dame is unhappy.
Seemingly, he's been unhappy since he ended up getting traded to the friggin' Bucks instead of the Heat.
More importantly, 2 words, Doc Rivers.
Yes. Doc Rivers, who got this job off the couch or out of the booth because he was calling games for ESPN with Mike Breen and Doris Burke.
I think the one thing that Doc Rivers can look forward to about the series is that he's not going to blow a 3-1 lead because it's going to be pretty difficult for them to win 3 games without Giannis.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. They're going to be playing from behind. And maybe Giannis comes back late in the series. I wouldn't recommend it. And honestly, I think we're witnessing the decline and fall of the Milwaukee Bucks as a championship contender. I think that in their haste to placate Giannis after a couple of disappointing playoff runs the previous 2 years, they traded away Drew Holiday. They got Damian Lillard, who I believe is declining. He's like 33, and he already didn't really fit what they do because he's not a good defender. And so they compromised their defense. They fired your boy Coach Bud, Evan. Oh. And then they bring in I already forgot his name, Adrian Griffin, who they fired after half a season.
And they fired the new coach after half a season. Yeah, I thought the coach they fired had been there for a couple years already.
No, they fired Coach Bud after the end of last season when they lost to the Heat in the first round. And they hired this new guy, I think, again, Adrian Griffin, I'm pretty sure that's his name.
Sure.
And they hired him
to win Coach of the Year.
He wins. I didn't pick him to win Coach of the Year. He goes 30-13, albeit I did point out on this podcast that the peripherals suggested the Bucks were not really that good, and I was proven right. But they hired Doc Rivers, and I think they didn't finish with 50 wins. So you can do the quick math on that, but that tells you that the Bucks were not very good with Doc Rivers as their head coach.
Yeah.
And now no Giannis, probably for at least 3 games in this series.
Are they getting swept?
I don't know if they'll get swept, but they're in trouble.
They're in trouble.
And even so, even if they get past the series and Giannis returns to full health, if they draw Philly in the second round, if Philly wins the play-in game tomorrow and then beats the Knicks, they're going home. Like, yeah. Philly's going to whoop their ass. Like, I firmly believe that.
And then we've got the Cleveland Cavaliers, the 4 seed, against, who's this in the 5? I've got the magic in me. What is Orlando doing in the playoffs?
They were pretty good.
This is so random.
They were pretty good. And somebody pointed out it's kind of strange that, Paolo Banchero, he was a Duke basketball player. He's a second-year player, won Rookie of the Year last year.
Yep.
He led a team. Oh, Cap scored! Yay! He led a team to. It was
Ovi.
Yeah.
Ovi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he led a team to the 5 seed in the playoffs. Like a legit 5 seed. They won 46 games. Like they were actually pretty good. At like age 21 as a second-year player, and nobody talks about it. So I did a little.
It's because it's Orlando. It's the Magic. Nobody knows that they exist anymore.
It's also because Banchero, as good as he is for a young player, he wasn't really their best players in terms of contributing to winning. Like the Wagner brothers, you might remember them from Michigan. Both Mo Wagner and Franz Wagner are on that team, and they play very good defense and they're very efficient. And so it's kind of a really good team basketball. I mean, yep, Ovi hit it off his ass or something.
I think it was off his chest or something.
Yeah, that counts. Yeah, he's all fired
it
up.
works.
Yeah, it works. Good for Ovi. John Tortorella's coaching the Flyers. I love that. He's such a curmudgeon. He's mad now because they took a goal away from the Flyers, which I still don't understand how they did that. But anyway, what were we talking about again?
We were talking about the Magic.
Oh yeah, well the Magic are pretty good, but I think they're obviously not a championship contender. Like they're not.
Markel's not still with them, is he?
I think he might be.
Is he?
But I didn't really see. I think he might have had some injuries this year.
It's a shame.
Yeah, but he's had a nice little resurgence after his bad bout with Philly, and he's a legit NBA player for them.
Okay. You listed here that this series serves as a tenderizer for the Celtics in round 2.
Yeah, because whoever wins this series is going to face the Celtics and they're going to get smoked. Like that's just the way it is. Like these are low ceiling teams. The Cavaliers had such a disappointing playoff run last year. They lasted one series. They lost to the Knicks, who I think the Cavs were the 3 seed, and the 6-seeded Knicks bullied them. Like absolutely punked them in that series. It wasn't even close.
So do they bounce back this year, or do they lose to the Magic?
I haven't watched enough Magic games because they're never on TV, as you have alluded to. But I think there's a good chance the Magic get them. But even if they don't, the Cavs aren't. They're not hanging with the Celtics. Even though the Celtics blew like a 22-point lead to the Cavs during the regular season, playoff time is a different animal.
Sounds like you're pretty solidly on the Celtics to come out of the Eastern Conference just because there's nobody else there that you trust.
I don't see anybody else that can beat them, no. And that's not because I think the Celtics are invulnerable. It's because the Celtics are really good and nobody else is. Like there are no contenders in the East. Like I think the Celtics are a legitimate championship contender. I don't think there is another championship contender in the East. I think there are a couple possibly in the West.
Who wins between them and the Nuggets?
Nuggets. I don't think anybody can beat the Nuggets in 7 games if they're healthy.
Who wins between them and the Thunder? Say the Thunder get there.
That's tough. Like the Thunder are tough to really get a read on just because they're so young and we haven't seen them in the playoffs. So it would be really bold of me to say that the Celtics are going to lose to them. I'd like to see that matchup. I think that would be really exciting, but I would probably pick the Celtics.
Let's say the Wolves finally figure it out in the playoffs. They make it to the NBA Finals.
Oh, no. The Celtics are beating the Wolves. Karl Towns and Rudy Gobert, come on.
And just because it's fun, Celtics or Warriors?
Warriors beat the Celtics.
Okay, I like
firmly,
it.
If they're playing well enough to get through the Western Conference, they're beating the Celtics.
Okay,
like they kind of own the Celtics.
They do.
They're in their heads.
That's part of why I thought it would be fun to go ahead and throw that.
Yeah,
that
if the Warriors actually pull that off and go from the 10 spot to the NBA Finals, they're winning the title. Like,
wow,
that's it.
There you go. All right. Before we move on to baseball, just real quick, want to go ahead and pay off the NCAA tournament brackets. Since we've been off for the last few weeks and missed the end of the of March Madness. Of course, now you know that the overall 1 seeds in both tournaments won their championships. The UConn Huskies on the men's side became the first team to go back-to-back since the 07 and 08 Florida Gators. 06 and 07 Florida Gators. And the South Carolina Gamecocks came back from a disappointing Final Four loss to Iowa last year to win the national title and actually finish off the undefeated season this year.
And they beat Iowa to do it. So
they beat Iowa to do it. So they avenged their loss, exactly the way that they would have wanted to. So congratulations to both of those teams. In the men's bracket challenge, Evan, out of 29 entries, you finished in
29th.
29th with 390 points. 90 points behind the second worst bracket.
It was me. I'm just kidding.
No, it wasn't. Actually,
I had the right champion.
Thanks to us having the correct champion, you and I were able to climb from similar depths to
similar depths
tie for 12th in the group.
Hey,
Mariana
we're in the upper,
Trench
we're in the
down
upper
there.
We're in
half.
the upper half, yes. So the winner was the Mighty Meisers, who I haven't been able to figure out who that was with the bracket titled the Mighty Meisers. So if you're listening to this podcast and you were the Mighty Meisers, let us know so we can give you a proper shout out. But you won with 1,340 points, which was 80 points ahead of second place. That was Rashonda's cousin Alvin. And then another 30 points back was third place, Janelle Becker-Porter, who's one of Rashonda's friends. So congratulations to the top three from the men's bracket challenge. On the women's side, Evan, you had a much better showing. You finished out of 17 entries. Yes.
I think it's at 5th.
Yeah, fifth
Hey,
place
look at
with
that.
1,400 points.
Yeah.
Not bad. Eric, you and I, we pulled off the double. We had both champions correct. But we had to settle for a tie for 6th place behind Evan. So we finished tied in both. We're like the same person. Sean Kennedy won the women's bracket challenge with 1,790 points.
Nice.
That was 120 points ahead of somebody with the bracket titled Wilson. I'm not entirely sure who this was. Maybe it's
Tom
my
Hanks.
cousin's husband, Wilson.
Somebody who
Maybe
likes Castaway a lot.
Maybe it was a fan of Castaway, or maybe it was a volleyball.
Maybe he was a fan of Fish.
Who
They've got a
knows?
song called Wilson.
Yeah.
Fish.
Yeah. Phish.
And then another 140 points behind Wilson in third place was somebody who used their generic ESPN fan username. So no clue who that was. But if you're listening and you were that person, you can let us know that too. And we'll give you a proper shout out. But congratulations to everybody. Thank you for joining us in our contest and giving us a reason to follow our brackets and to hope that we could climb out of the cellar. Unfortunately, Evan could only do that with one of his brackets.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's terrible.
So let's move on to Major League Baseball. We are coming up on the 3-week mark of the season this Thursday. The Orioles and the Yankees are both off to pretty hot starts. My Yankees started 4-0. We swept the Astros in Houston in 4 games.
Mopped them.
Yeah.
I was thrilled. I was so happy about that.
I was not. I was like, great. The Yankees are going to win all the games this year.
So the Yankees are 12-5 to start the season. They did suffer their first back-to-back losses Sunday against Cleveland and then last night against Toronto, hoping to win tonight and tomorrow afternoon. That would make it 6 straight series wins to start the season. I mentioned we swept the Astros, and we've won the last 4 series, each 2-1. Of note, when we played Toronto earlier this season, we lost the opening game of the series on April 5th, 3-0, before winning the next 2 games, 9-8 and 8-3. So we're hoping to replicate that performance.
Yankees are playing in Toronto now.
Yeah, we are playing
north
in
of the
Toronto
border.
now. We are up 1-0 in the top of the third. So far, despite a just really bad first inning by Carlos Rodon, he's managed to not give up any runs, which at this point I'm just hoping for 5 strong innings and an opportunity to get the win for my fantasy team, because he had like 30 pitches in the first inning, or I think he actually went over 30 pitches in the first inning, which not good.
No runs, though.
No
Chris
runs,
Tillman
though.
threw 50 pitches in the first inning.
Who did that?
Chris Tillman.
Goodness.
Yeah.
50 pitches in the first inning.
How many runs did he give up in that inning?
I don't think any of them were earned, but like
Well,
a lot.
Yeah.
But he gave up a lot.
Somebody
A lot of
booted the
runs.
ball. And, yeah.
Goodness. Caps lead 1-0 after the first period. Some of the players that have really stood out early in the season, obviously we have a star-studded lineup. You got Aaron Judge, who's a fantastic player. You got Juan Soto, who's a fantastic player. You've got Giancarlo Stanton, who has been a fantastic player at one point in his career. He's actually turned it on big time so far this season. I mean, this is the Giancarlo Stanton we thought we were getting from Miami. But instead, the 2 players that have really stood out the most have been Oswaldo Cabrera and Anthony Volpe. Cabrera has been incredible. He's batting .292, which would be good for third on the team if he met the plate appearance qualification. And despite not meeting that qualification, he's second on the team with 12 RBI behind Soto with 15. He's tied for second with Judge and Soto with 3 home runs. He's tied for third in runs scored, and he's tied for fourth in hits in general. So Cabrera has just been outstanding, and hopefully he can keep up this torrential pace. Volpe has arguably been the best player on the team in the early going. He spent the first 11 games batting either 6th or 7th, with one game batting 5th. He's now hit at the top of the order in the last 5 games. I think he's hitting at the top of the order tonight, though I didn't get a look at the lineup. But he is slashing 373, 464, 542. He is first on the team in all 3. He's first in stolen bases with 6. The rest of the team has 4 combined. He's tied for 3rd with 10 walks behind Judge and Soto, who each have 16. Like, Volpe has been phenomenal. Like, when you can have 2 young, relatively unknown players who are outshining Judge and Soto, at least temporarily, and hopefully can at least, stay close to that range, that's going to smell really good things for our offense. Defensively, I've been really happy with Marcus Stroman. He's looked impressive. He has a 2.12 ERA, a 106 WHIP. He hasn't been overpowering. He has 17 strikeouts across 17 innings, but he's only giving up a 180 batting average to his opponents. Clay Holmes has been really good out of the bullpen. Last year was not a great year for Clay Holmes. He was very underwhelming. He's blown 1 save this season, but he has 6 saves, which is tied for the lead in baseball with Kyle Finnegan of the Nationals. How the heck do the Nationals have a guy who is tied for the league lead in saves?
Because they're not closing with Hunter Harvey.
Sure, but they have to win games to get saves. That's kind of my point. Ryan Helsley of the Cardinals and Robert Suarez of the Dads. Clay Holmes has not given up a run across 8 innings, or at least not an earned run across 8 innings, and he has a 113 WHIP. So I think he came in for a 10th inning where he gave up a run that was unearned, and that counted as a blown save for him. But yeah, so my Yankees are looking pretty good so far this season. Knock on wood, fingers crossed that they can keep that up. But let's turn to your guys' Orioles, because while they haven't been quite as hot as the Yankees, they're pretty darn close. They're only a game and a half behind the Yankees coming into today, 10-6.
Yeah, and the Orioles came into this season thinking that the early season slate was going to be kind of the easy part of the season, but that hasn't really been the case, because the teams that they've played have been surprisingly good. Like, the Royals are legit somehow.
They are?
Yeah. They won like 7 in a row after they left Oriole Park.
Oh, jeez.
So, that's hello. So you're going to have to see them in the post, which is hopefully not. Please no. But the Pirates and the Brewers are both surprisingly good. They're both 10-5. And, the Angels stink, but they're actually like 500 right now. And the Red Sox were looking good until the Orioles went up there and swept them. So, it's not like the teams they've been facing have been that bad, right? Like, we thought they'd be worse than this. And the Orioles have still put together, they've won, 4 out of the 6 series, or
something like that. Yeah. It's just, I was expecting the Brewers not to be able to hit, and I guess the Orioles pitchers thought that as well, and we were all wrong.
Yeah, suddenly the Brewers were hitting everything, man. Like, they were all over it, and the Orioles they felt fortunate to get the 1 win out of that series on the Sunday game. And then you had the Pirates, sort of the same thing. Their pitching was really good, and the Orioles offense just got shut down, but they swept the Red Sox, which really kind of got them rolling a little bit.
Yeah.
As of right now, they beat the Twins pretty comfortably yesterday, and they're beating them pretty comfortably right now, 8-1. So you got to feel pretty good about that. The offense has been, from the guys that you expect to be good or hoped to be good, they've all pretty much delivered, right? Like, if you look up and down the lineup that's out there today, with the exception of Jackson Holliday, who we figured would have some early struggles, because that's what happens to 20-year-olds who get called up, he's not the first guy to struggle. He won't be the last one. It harkens back to even Willie Mays started 0 for 12 for his career. And then he got his first career hit, which was a home run off of some guy named Warren Spahn. So
Warren Spahn.
Yeah, like it's just the way it goes sometimes. But the other young guys, the other rookie Colton Cowser, who got some time last year and struggled
mightily.
Yeah,
he was looking lost.
He's now OPSing north of 1,300 as of today, because he's 2 for 2 with 2 hits, but he had slipped under 1,300. Oh no! After going 0 for 4 yesterday, but he's been the best hitter in baseball so far this year.
AL Player of the Week.
Yes, and then Jordan Westbrook's been great. He's been the most clutch player in baseball.
He hit a home run tonight.
He hit a home run. He hit a walk-off home run against the Royals, and he hit the go-ahead home run with 2 outs against Boston when the Royals were trailing 5-4. A 2-out, 2-strike hit over the monster in center field.
Yes.
To give the Orioles a 7-5 lead, which they would hold for the remainder of the game. And, it's just been – the offense has been legit. Gunnar Henderson's starting to pick it up. He's hit homers in each of his last 2 games. He hit a home run in extra innings against the Red Sox to put the Orioles ahead by 2 runs. Adley Rutschman's offense has been a little bit slower. He's hitting for a high average. He's getting on base, but the power isn't quite there. It's mostly singles and walks. But we know he's going to pick it up. He's going to be fine. The only regular that you hope to see in the lineup that struggled pretty much throughout the season so far is Anthony Santander. But he had a slow start last year before picking it up and ended up being, I think he hit 28 home runs last year.
28 or 29, something like that.
So he's going to be fine as well. But I think that there's not really a whole lot to worry about with the offense. It's the pitching that obviously there's some concerns with the rotation depth, especially with John Means and with Kyle Bradish still rehabbing. Kyle Bradish made a rehab start today, pitched 3 scoreless innings in Bowie, so that was good.
Wow.
He was hitting 95 and 96 miles an hour, so
Okay.
he looked good. But obviously with Tyler Wells now hurt after being woefully ineffective for 3 starts,
Yeah.
with Dean Kramer being inconsistent for 3 starts, one of which where he was horrible, and then Cole Irvin's been bad pretty much since he got to Baltimore last year.
He did get hosed by the umps a little bit last week in Boston.
That's
but,
true. That
like,
is true.
Cole Irvin, he didn't,
He didn't deserve.
he didn't deserve better.
Yeah, he had a strikeout taken away from him, which led to a walk and then an eventual home run. So I agree with what you're saying there, but we know that Cole Irvin's not good.
No.
And he's not an ideal 5th guy. Tyler Wells he belongs in the bullpen, and now he's injured for some length of time. So the Orioles have to find somebody to make a start while Means and or Bradish are on the mend.
And that guy's probably not coming from AAA, like the regular AAA team, because we keep seeing how the Norfolk Tides keep scoring a whole bunch of runs and keep losing somehow.
Yeah, and Cade Povich has looked good, but I don't think that Michael
Not a lot
Elias-
of pitching prospects is what you're
No.
saying.
No, Michael Elias is not going to bring up Cade Povich just because he had 3 good starts in Norfolk and because, the Orioles need a starter. They'll figure something out.
Gonna have to trade for somebody.
Yeah, there's going to have to be a trade made in all likelihood, and interesting to see what that's going to be. But the Orioles' bullpen's actually been better than I thought. There's been some bums for sure. A lot of guys to complain about. I made you a laundry list there, Evan. I'm sure you'll spend some time on all of
Oh,
those
my
names.
goodness.
Yeah, we'll get to those in just a second.
But, Yenier Cano's looked like he did last year. Like, he's been pretty good. He's had a couple of bad outings, but, for the most part, he's been solid. Craig Kimbrell has looked way better than I thought he would.
He's been incredible.
I thought he was going to be a shaky at best closer.
Yeah.
His one blown save was nonsense. Right?
Oh yeah, that was a little blooper that fell in.
Yep.
2 stolen bases.
One of which Arias just refused to tag the guy out.
Yeah, and then a sac fly.
Yeah, so if that's how you blow a save, whatever. And he got the win because Westberg walked it off the next inning. So, Kimbrell's been great. Danny Coulombe's been incredible. He gave the 1 home run in Boston, but other than that, he's been virtually unhittable. Keegan Bacon has been dealing.
Yes.
Yesterday he struggled. He can't possibly pitch well on Jackie Robinson Day, but
I was like Josh Hader.
yes, same reason why.
Oh, dear.
I
Yeah.
left him on my bench yesterday. I cut him today.
Cut Hader.
Yeah, I cut Hader.
He's been bad.
He's been really bad.
I told you I didn't want to sign him. He's uncompetitive. I don't trust uncompetitive people.
Oh,
I just don't trust him.
uncompetitive.
Yeah, he refused to pitch more than a 3-out save when the Padres were trying to get into the playoffs because he doesn't want to mess up his money. Like, he basically said that.
But
He was a pending free agent in the offseason, and he just said, I'm not pitching more than 3 outs because I'm not trying to blow out my arm a week before I hit free agency.
I mean, at least Garrett Cole, after Game 7 of the World Series, it was only after Game 7 that he
season
put
was over.
his agency's hat on, right, instead of an Astros hat,
It was actually pretty funny. And
right? But
and
the
Cole's
season
ire-
wasn't going on
And
at the time.
Cole's ire at that point was justified because they didn't bring him into the game to finish off that World Series win when Greinke started to falter. He wanted to come in and be like the
guy.
the Madison Bumgarner of 2014. and they didn't let him. They brought in their crappy bullpen guys, and they just blew the game.
Yeah.
So, blown World Series. So, that was the case. Anyway, we've gotten off track. We're talking about the Orioles bullpen.
Oh.
And yeah, like I said, they've been pretty good. CNL Perez is hurt, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Dylan Tate's been better than I thought he would be, actually. I thought he was going to be terrible, and he's had his
He's
moments.
been okay.
Yeah, he's been okay, which is good enough. But there have been some guys who have just been horrible, and I put them on that list just
Yes,
for
Big
you.
Mike Bauman. For some reason, he was allowed to pitch in extra innings, and that was a predictable disaster.
I was there.
Yeah, Eric was in the barn for that.
Yeah.
The very beautiful barn in Pittsburgh.
It was great. Except for that part.
Except for that part, yeah. Someone called Heasley was scooped up off the scrap heap at some point in the past month or so. Predictable results out of him.
Yeah, he was bad.
So, I think you guys pretty much touched on all these topics up top. So I guess we can get to the people for Evan to complain about.
Well, I want to shout out Cedric Mullins because.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, he's got an OPS of 872 right now.
And you can't escape him.
Yeah, you can't skip him. And he's playing great defense. And Mullins is a guy he was the one guy in the lineup where he's going to be in the lineup every day, regardless of if he hits, because his defense is so valuable, his base running is valuable. But the fact that he's hitting, like with this lineup, it makes it that much more difficult to navigate this 1 through 9.
Extremely potent.
Yeah.
Cedric Mullins, I mean, I don't want to have this be glossed over. He made an incredible catch last night. The ball, he was sort of shaded to right center.
Yep.
The ball was smoked in the left center gap, and he just took off and then took flight like Superman and caught the ball. It was insane, and earned a Tyler Clippard-esque reaction from Cole Irvin. So
Rightfully so, because
that ball was smoked,
and it saved a run, and it got him out of the inning.
Yeah. Cedric's been pretty good. He struggled a little bit last year, not only just hitting and fielding, but certainly injuries played a role in that. So it looks like he's healthy, and he's been playing good ball.
So people for Evan to complain about. We'll start with Ramon Urias.
Oh my goodness gracious. This guy he's been banished to the shadow realm finally. He should have been traded like 2 years ago after he won a gold glove for some reason. We know he's bad, but the other team might not know that. And they'll be like, oh, we're getting a gold glove third baseman, and he can hit a little bit. It turns out he's really not that good. Now that Jackson Holliday's been called up to play second base, and Westberg has been raking over at third, and Gunner's been incredible at shortstop, there's no place in the lineup or on the field for Ramon Urias, which has been the case for like 2 years. But for some reason, he's been getting a bunch of playing time and at-bats and stuff. But, he hasn't been very good. He's going to get DFA'd at some point. Like, he never plays at all.
Yeah, like the thing is, even if you have a situation where, we talked about Holiday struggling a little bit, and so it's understandable if they decide to give him a couple days off against a left-handed pitcher. Mm-hmm. You have Jorge Mateo, who's playing better than Urias, who can play second base, right? Like you've got a guy that fills that role that's better. So Urias doesn't really have a role on the team, in my opinion.
No.
So I don't really know.
He ain't got no job.
I don't really know what he does here exactly. So, there's legitimate complaints. He's served his purpose, right? He was a good player for the Orioles in 2022. I think he had a wins above replacement almost pushing 4, which is, that's a good ball player. Mm-hmm. But he didn't recapture that last year, and you knew that there was going to be an influx of infielders coming in. And he's lost his job and he's lost his role because he hasn't even been the best backup infielder.
Yeah. I mean, if Ramon Urias was batting .400 and still allegedly playing gold glove defense, he'd still be on the field.
Yeah, like Ryan O'Hearn. There's a reason O'Hearn is in the lineup every night, or every night against a righty at least, is because he's still producing.
Yeah.
We did something we don't really know.
It happens occasionally.
He's on first.
Next player is Austin Hayes.
Oh, my God. This guy, he's got no approach at the plate whatsoever, right? He's just, I feel like he makes up his mind in the on deck circle as to what type of approach he's going to have. Like, he's either going to take a meatball right down the middle and, pretend to be a patient hitter, or he's just going to swing out of his shoes 3 times on just some junk that's not even close to the zone and go sit back down. Either way, it's just, it never leads to a productive at bat, really. Lots of ground balls to shortstop and stuff. A lot of strikeouts. Not a whole lot of strikeouts looking, just, swinging wildly. If Austin Hayes was still one of the young guys on this team, I mean, that's sort of appropriate to be struggling, I guess. But like, Austin Hayes has been here since 2017, 18?
Yep.
Right? It's been 7 years, and he's still the same guy. Just swings at everything. So I'm just frustrated with Austin Hayes and his lack of performance. Meanwhile, Colton Cowser, who was getting his at bats stolen by Austin Hayes, has become the greatest baseball player of all time.
He is leading all of baseball with a 1.297 OPS.
Again, it's higher now because he's 2 for 2 tonight.
Oh,
So,
okay. Well, I mean, he was at like 1,600 last week, so
He's back there.
he cooled off a little bit,
He's
right?
Declining.
But like
He's declining. He's done.
Colton, he's
Put Hayes back in.
Cowser's
Take him
been
out of your lineup.
mashing the ball, right? Like, they need to put a statue of him, right outside the stadium next to the statue of some guy named George Herman Ruth. So,
Austin Hayes, 2023 American League All-Star starter, by the way.
That's when they should have traded him.
I agree. I said so. You can check the tape. I said so.
Third player, Tyler Wells.
I mean, he's he doesn't pitch sort of mean and nasty enough.
Nice
Oh
play
my
by
goodness.
Buxton. Wow. Took one away from O'Hearn there.
Yeah, Wells doesn't pitch mean and nasty enough to match his 6'8" frame. Like,
That's
he's
true.
gigantic, right? But like, he doesn't go after people. Maybe it's a between the ears issue, but he likes to nibble a little bit. Sometimes Eric and I saw this on Friday when, like, just he'll get. It was against Gary Sanchez, right? It was a 2-strike count, I think, with 2 outs, and he just lays it in there, and it was absolutely crushed, 430 some feet for a home run. Eric predicted it just
I think that
out
was
loud.
Sanchez's first home run of the season.
It
He
his
was
first
0 for
hits of the
12.
season. Yeah, he was 0 for
Of the
12.
season.
Yeah,
And he launched it 434 feet over the big wall in left field.
yeah.
It's absurd.
And the scoreboard gave him 2 hits
Yeah, they gave him 2 hits for
instead
it.
of just 1.
They were doing that all night. They were messing up.
I don't know what was going on up there.
That's
But
funny.
yeah, Tyler Wells,
He's so bad he gave up 2 hits to 1 batter.
it was a rocket.
Yeah, he hit it far enough for it to be 2 home runs. So,
Yeah, so he's been frustrating.
Dean Kremer.
Kramer, he's predictable, or predictably unreliable, I'll say. Like, he just, again, maybe it's between the ears, but like, sometimes he's dominant, and then other times, if one little thing happens, he just falls apart. And he's just looking at the ball like it's the ball's fault or something, and it just drives me crazy. This was the best player the Orioles got for Manny Machado, like 6 years ago now.
he wasn't supposed to be the best.
He wasn't supposed to be, but he is the
He was
best
a
player.
throw-in. The fact that he's actually turned into like a major league starter, maybe not a good one, but a major league starter for this team, that was a surprise.
Supposed to have been Yusniel Diaz, but he is out of the league.
Where is he? Is he done?
I don't know.
Has he just disappeared?
Vanished.
What's
Yeah.
up with all these Diaz's whose first initial is Y?
Uh,
Yainer Diaz,
I
Yandy
think it's-
Diaz.
I
Honestly-
wish we had Yandy Diaz instead of Yusniel Diaz, because Yandy Diaz is a beast.
Yeah, I think. I mean, when Keith
I even
Olbermann.
take Yainer Diaz.
Well, Yusniel Diaz isn't in the show or in any. I don't think he's playing anywhere.
Yeah.
He's just done.
Back when Keith Olbermann had a show, he did
All 4 times before he got fired.
the one that
4
called
times.
Olbermann in like 2013 or something.
On MSNBC.
No, on ESPN.
Oh, because he had one on MSNBC. He got fired from that one too.
Oh, okay. Well, the ESPN one. Ooh, that was pathetic looking.
Wow.
Talking about Torres.
Is that Glaber? Yeah.
Yeah,
that was
Oh,
terrible.
that was
it-
Labor Day.
It is
That was
not Glaber
It
Day.
is not Labor Day.
Yikes!
That was a
Looking like
brand.
Kevin Millar.
Oh, God. That sucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to bring it back serious for a second, I think all the Y names have something to do with Fidel Castro and the sort of silently resisting the regime in Cuba. So
Oh, interesting. Okay. Did not know that.
Yasiel Puig.
Yes.
I guess. Okay.
Well, sure, but I'm just thinking like all these Diaz's. Like,
Yeah.
for example, with my spreadsheet for Alex's team, because he has both Yaner and Yandy on his team, I have to type out like multiple letters before it'll like autofill
Yeah,
the
'cause
name because I've
they
got two
match,
YA Diaz's. Next name, Cole Irvin.
I mean, we talked about him. He's just not very good, right? He was a big trade acquisition for the Orioles a year ago. I mean,
Big.
he was the big acquisition,
That's true.
right? The Orioles' big acquisition.
Him and Adam Frazier.
Yeah, and
He
No.
came from the Astros?
A's.
Or the A's, the A's.
yeah, the other A team.
Yeah.
And he was just so awful. He got sent down to the minors.
I didn't even know he had options when they sent him down. I'm like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah. Hayes still has an option left.
yeah,
So,
yes, that's true.
you know, if what's going oh, okay. So yeah, Cole Irvin, he got sent down. He was, in the bullpen late last year. And honestly, I feel like the bullpen is his role again this year. But there's been so many injuries to Orioles pitchers that you just need somebody to throw the ball at this point.
Yeah, Irvin was noticeably upset when he got hooked with he was 4 2/3 innings and he only thrown like 82 pitches, but he was facing the order a third time, so Hyder went and got him, and he was kind of like getting all frustrated that he's getting taken out. I was like, well,
You think you're Blake Snell in the World
suck.
Series?
Like,
Yeah.
like you've been bad, so
For years.
I don't care, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not feeling bad for you that you're not going to get your win. You stink.
Yeah. Colton Cowser's batting. The Orioles lead 9-2 now.
Mm-hmm.
You've got 2 names left on this list to complain about. Next one is Mike Baumann.
I mean, we talked about
Baumann?
him too. He's,
Yeah, Baumann, yeah.
big Mike Baumann. He was the guy who came in to pitch in extra innings in Pittsburgh for some reason.
And finally, Jonathan Heasley.
I don't know anything about this guy, but
We
off the
watched
scrap.
him. We were there.
He was in make his own mop up duty, I guess. Like he came in. I want to say it was 4-1.
It was 4-1. The Orioles were in the game. Like,
Yeah.
nominally.
Yeah, and he came in and made it 10-1, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
7-1, and then Hyder put him out there for another inning, and then he made it 10-1. So.
Yeah.
God.
So make your own mop up
Yes.
duty.
All right. Well, the Orioles have 2 more with the Twins, including tonight's game that they are currently dominating. Hopefully, they can hold it for the last 3 innings of this game, maybe even extend their lead, although they're down to their final out in the 6th. And then you head to Kansas City for the weekend, and then Anaheim next Monday. We talked a little bit about Kansas City. We'll talk about them a little bit more in a few minutes, but let's go around the league a bit, and we'll start with some of the biggest news that we didn't really get to talk about, which was the at least as it stands right now, the supposed conclusion to the Shohei Ohtani scandal. We seem to have resolution to that. The FBI has come out and basically said like Shohei was not involved. This was all EPA's doing. He stole this money. He had a severe gambling issue and a lot of gambling debt. And he may have used his connection to Shohei in order to get these illegal bookies to float all this debt, I guess. But Shohei himself, as far as they can tell, was not involved. There's still a lot of questions that I have that were not answered. I'm still not 100% convinced, but there's no evidence there. So this is what it is.
See, I told you 3-2 counts they will chase. He did not chase that on 2-2. Anyway.
And it was close at 2-2.
Yeah. Anyway,
we were watching Colton Cowser.
I've seen some of the evidence that that suggests that Ipe was doing this on his own. It was pretty convincing that this is something that he had hooked up by himself. Like it seemed like somehow he had bypassed what should have probably been a million stop gates saying you can't do this, but it happened. It feels like
there were a couple of messages between EPA and the bookie that he was communicating with that seemed to suggest that there had been previous conversation between them that maybe did not suggest that it was just EPA, because the bookie said something about, I know that this is just like you're taking the fall. There was a message where he said that, and that has me scratching my head a little bit, but I don't know.
Well, the bookie probably thought that Shohei was the one that was, he was using Ipe as a go-between. That's not credible evidence that he did
It's circumstantial at best.
Yeah, and so, but there is some evidence that, Ipe did have access to these bank records and bank accounts without necessarily having to check with Shohei.
Which is crazy to me.
And it almost feels like Ipe's role was more than just as an interpreter, and we've noticed this with Japanese players that have had interpreters. That guy kind of becomes your best buddy and almost like
a pseudo agent or manager,
like a handler. Yeah, he takes care of your business.
He's the only person you can talk to.
Yeah, because he's the only guy who you can communicate with. So that seems to be what might have been happening here, and Shohei might have been a little bit too trusting. I don't know. I am convinced enough to not feel compelled to keep trying to beat that horse.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
The FBI buys this.
Yeah,
right?
The FBI has no reason to cover up for Shohei either.
Right, yeah.
So,
yeah.
There's enough for me to say, okay, I'm not going to be that guy that's saying, well, your guy's a degenerate cheater, gambler type.
Yeah.
But I still do think that there's more to the story than we got. I just don't know what that is. That could be anything. And it could have nothing. It could not. It might not be incriminating towards Shohei. In fact, it probably isn't. But, there is something else that happened here that we're just never going to know. But it seems like they've adequately cleared Shohei and to a reasonable level of doing anything wrong here.
Yeah. Paul Blackburn, pitcher for the A's. 3 starts, 19 and a third innings, 0.00 ERA and a .72 WHIP. He's only 1-0 across those 3 starts.
Sounds like a future Oriole.
Despite Oakland having a fairly respectable 7-10 record, at least respectable compared to our expectations coming to the season for them.
I thought they were going to win more games than y'all gave them credit for. I said so on the pod.
Oh.
I did not think that they were going to, be 7-10, 17 games of the season.
I didn't know what they would be.
I mean, I thought that the A's were sounding like a 1962 Mets situation.
But this is the one starting pitcher with a qualified number of innings pitched who has not yet given up an earned run in baseball. So
good for him.
Paul Blackburn is pitching his behind off. Ronel Blanco lived up to his name in his first start of the season through a no-no in the 5th game of the season for the Astros. It was his 8th career start. As I mentioned, the Astros lost their first 4 games of the season all to the Yankees. Well, in their 5th game of the season, they played the Blue Jays, and Ronel Blanco no-hit them. The Astros won that game 10-0. Behind that impressive outing, the 21-year-old continued that start into his next start when he threw 6 scoreless innings, giving up just 1 hit in a 3-1 win against the Rangers. He did get tagged a bit when he gave up 5 hits and 2 runs to the Rangers in another Astros win, that one 9-2. But the Astros are 3-0 when Blanco starts. They are 3-12 behind other pitchers.
Very large yikes.
Yeah. His next start is scheduled for Friday in Washington, but the question right now is it time to panic in Houston? Because it seems like they've got a bit of a problem.
They've played, what, 10% of the games?
Yeah.
No, it's not time to panic.
I think there are concerns. I wouldn't say panic. The concerns that we kind of talked about were we were worried about their rotation. We were worried about their starting rotation, and
especially with Framber Valdez.
Framber Valdez being injured now.
Lance McCullers being hurt still, or again, or something.
Existing, but not providing any
Hahn's at
value.
91 pitches. He's not going to get 5 innings for me.
What inning is it?
Not. It's the
the
bottom
fourth.
of the fourth, and he's in a battle with Springer.
Yeah,
with
they're not
runners
going
on
to
base.
let him come back out for the 5th. I'd be shocked.
Or if they do, he's not going to finish it. No way.
Unless he gets very lucky with like 3 1-pitch outs.
Yeah, or if he faces like 3 lefties and he gets them out quickly. Yeah. But
Anyway, back to the Astros.
yeah, the Astros pitching is a real problem, and we talked about the West being better and teams catching up. The Rangers are obviously the defending World Series champions. The Mariners have been a competitive team for the last couple of years now, and even the Angels have been okay, right? Like they're what 8-8. I mean, I'm not expecting them to be a playoff team, but they're not as easy of a win, it appears, as they have been in the past. And even the A's are not quite the complete doormat. Like, they could take a game off of you in a 3-game series. So I think that there's just a little bit more difficulty, and the pitching has gotten worse, and so they've gotten themselves into a hole. I'm not willing to write them off yet, but I think they need to do something. They need to make a move, because I don't know what move they can make, because they've emptied the coffers with their prospects, chasing World Series the last several years. They did the right thing, but at this point, they're out of prospects.
Something that I don't think any of us had on our early season bingo cards. All 5 ALS teams, or AL East teams.
ALS teams.
Goodness.
Ooh, that's scary.
All 5 AL East teams are ahead of the number 1 AL West team by at least half a game.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me just because the AL East is awesome.
Guess how many AL East teams are behind the top 3 AL Central teams? The answer is 3 of them.
Yeah, because
The AL Central is actually playing pretty good early season ball.
Cleveland and
Cleveland is
Kansas
11-5, Kansas City is 11-6, and Detroit is 10-7.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
but yeah, let's talk about Kansas City first and foremost, because a lot of us thought that they were probably going to be, if not the worst team in baseball again, they were going to be like bottom 3.
I thought they were going to be bad, but I thought the White Sox would be
like the
worse.
teams that we thought could be worse than them were maybe the White Sox
had
and
the
probably
White
the
Sox
Rockies. Those were
and
probably
the A's.
yeah, and the A's. Although you thought the A's were even better than this, but
Better than 55 wins or something.
In any case, none of us had Kansas City winning 11 games in their first 20, and we haven't even gotten to 20 games yet. They could win more than that.
5 of those wins were against the White Sox,
who are horrible.
The White Sox are 2-14.
I think the White Sox are off to their worst start ever, and they've been around. They've been in the American League since 1903.
And not very good history for the White Sox, so it's not like they're.
I mean, yeah.
Miami started 0-12, I think, or 0-11. They're now 3-14, so at least they're playing 500 balls since then. But they're bad.
Yeah. The Tigers swept the White Sox already. Cleveland took 2 out of 3 from them.
Everybody's beating them.
The White Sox are woeful.
This Kansas City team, though, is kind of frisky. I take your point, Evan, that 5 of those games, of those wins, have been against the White Sox, but they have some decent pitchers on their team, and they have some decent hitters. Like, this is a team that can actually compete. I wouldn't be shocked if this team...
They could win this division.
Yeah.
They could win this division, which would be crazy. They also, I think that they could hang in that realm of 500 ball through the season.
Rodon's not making it through the 4th, Corey.
And he's probably going to take the loss, too. I was hoping he could at least get that out and at least not take the loss.
Nope, he just gave up a knock to Vladimir. But anyway, like the Royals pitching is good because they traded Aroldis Chapman to the Rangers last year for one of their best pitching prospects.
Now Aroldis Chapman is blowing saves for the Pirates.
Yeah. But he's started for this Royals team. He's been really good. And they've had other good pitching prospects. Their offense was a concern, but Bobby Witt's great. Mm-hmm. Salvador Perez can still hit.
Oh yeah,
and if the pitchers live up to the hype, and some of these other guys around Witt and Perez can get hot for a period of time, this team's going to be dangerous and can win some games. And that's what they've done. I mean, the Orioles took 2 out of 3 of them from the Royals in Oriole Park, but they needed 2 walk-off wins to escape that. I mean, it was an annoying series like the Royals loved to play 10 years ago. It had the same type of vibes, but the Orioles were able to win a couple of games because the Orioles are actually pretty good. And, but beyond that, it's just like this Royals team is actually pretty good. I think they're going to be going places going forward. And with this crappy division, they could arrive a little early, and it looks like they maybe have. I mean, Cleveland's been better than we thought, but I have more faith in the Royals holding up over 162 than I do Cleveland.
Yeah. One stat that I noticed that was interesting to me, and the Orioles game is maybe throwing this a little bit out of whack, but home runs have been down a bit early in the season, at least from last year. So as of April 14th, last year, Major League Baseball was seeing 2.37 home runs per game. That number this year is down to 2.08, which is a 12% drop. Now, this is still a far cry from 2022 when that number was only 1.78 per game at this point in the season. That was the year that we had the whole humidifiers stuff going on, or humidors. Humidors, whatever the word was.
Humidifiers.
Whatever it was. They were storing the
balls
balls in a different
words.
place. That, like, where the air was supposed to be super humid, it was supposed to, like, kill the ball a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, because the ball's reduced.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we're somewhere in between the two. But, it's... are we starting to see a return to batters having more of an approach where their focus is just putting the ball in play? Are we starting to get to that point in baseball again, or do you think that the approach is still like launch angle, try and hit it out of the yard most of the time?
It's still launch angle, but I think there's something to getting on base now carries a little more weight because these are steal bases, but just offense in general is down. Like OPSs are way down for this season so far, but it's also early.
What do you think? What has been the result and the impact of getting rid of the shift so far?
I mean, teams still do a pseudo shift.
Sure, but you can't have more than two players on either side of the bag.
Yeah, I understand. I understand it's different, but I think that there's been. I mean, that probably increases the number of hits on balls put in the field of play. I haven't actually researched that, but I'm sure that BABIP is up for the league, right? Like, I'm sure that's a thing. But as far as home runs, I don't think it's a change in philosophy. I think it's just, right now it's been 10% of the season, right? Like we're only a tenth of the way through. Early in the season, it's not warm yet. The ball doesn't fly as well, so that's a factor. I think that it's just maybe it's a matter of time before you start seeing more dingers, but I wouldn't get caught up in any type of trend just yet.
Okay. Well, I've definitely been watching more Yankees games than I have in a while. I've been watching more baseball games in general than I have in a while. It's been a fun season to watch so far. I'm enjoying it a lot. Every morning, one of the first things that I do once I have a little bit of free time is I go on to MLB.com and I watch the Fastcast, the rundown of yesterday's games. It's less than 10 minutes long, and you get to see some of the biggest plays from every game that was played the day before. So that's helped me to kind of keep an eye on the league as a whole, which has been fun. I got to see 3 straight games with a home run to start the season for Lourdes Gurriel Jr. in Arizona. This is a guy who 2 years ago only hit 5 home runs. He almost equaled that in the first week of the season, the first 3 days of the season this year. Andrew McCutchen has been great. He hit his 300th home run, I think, in his career the other day. He was
closing in on that.
I had a really cool moment with a young fan who caught the ball afterwards. Had a nice conversation with him, and that was a really cool video. But yeah, it's been a fun season so far, and hopefully it continues to be.
Holiday just got rung up on a pitch right on the black on the inside corner. I'm getting so tired of this.
Well, I mean, strike 2 was right on the black on the inside corner, too.
Just like, can you throw him some pitches he can hit? Everybody else gets hittable pitches, but it's ridiculous.
There you go. Any Woj bombs? Any late breaking news? Anything else we want to talk about before we wrap up the show today?
Well, the Caps just gave up the game-tying goal, so it's 1-1.
Yep, 5.5 minutes to go in the second period.
The Orioles are rolling, so I'm not really worried about that.
And the Yankees are down by the same score they lost by yesterday. Hopefully they can at least get back to where Carlos Rodon is not on the hook for the loss for me.
Looks like my boy Yusei Kikuchi's pitching pretty well, though.
He's pitching well, and so is my other boy, Jones. Jared Jones is pitching really well for Pittsburgh right now.
Against the Mets.
Well, to be fair, the Mets have fought back. They started 0-5 and they're now 8-8. So,
okay.
The Mets are not
Meet
quite
the
as
Mets.
bad as we thought they were in the early going. Still not good, but
Yeah.
they're third place in the NL East. They've climbed back ahead of Washington, who beat the Dodgers last night. The Dodgers have been a little bit disappointing. They're leading the NL West right now, but they're only 11-8.
I mean, I feel like the standings don't really mean a whole lot till you get to at least June.
That's probably true. Like we usually
Right,
don't do an
like-
update till
Yeah, but
Memorial Day.
if you're talking about a team that's going to win 100 games, you probably want to be better than 11-8
Okay.
3 weeks into the season.
Sure, but like, I don't know. It's been 17 games, 19 for the Dodgers.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Well, we will go ahead and start wrapping up the show. If you have made it this far into the podcast, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Hit the bell icon if you're listening live on YouTube so that you know when we go live. You can follow us on Twitter at SportsBallers18. We always, at the very least, post something in the morning or early afternoon the day of our show so that you know it's coming up. But you can follow us there. You can follow us individually on Twitter. I am at Corey Puffett. Eric is at Quagmire67. Evan is at Evan_Ash13. You can email us, thesportsballers@gmail.com, if you have topics that you'd like to hear us discuss on the show. And in addition to wherever you're listening right now, you can always catch the live show on YouTube. You can listen to the show after the fact on Apple, Spotify, Google, and Amazon. Before we get out of here, any shout-outs?
I don't have any.
I've got a couple. Shout out to obviously PNC Park as a non-living being. You rock.
I will be there on Saturday.
Yes, it's a good time. And shout out to, I believe, Fun for All. Oh, we got run up on that nonsense. Fun for All in Cranberry, Pennsylvania, where I picked up a coaster cred on the way to Canton on Sunday. And, of course, shout out to Sluggers and Putters.
I looked up that little coaster at Fun for All.
Yes.
Did it actually coast? It looked a little powered.
It coasted.
Okay.
There's a little coast in there, yeah. But anyway, it counts as a coaster,
It's
man.
a roller powered.
I mean, yeah, it can't be powered, right? That's called a monorail.
If it was powered, there wasn't a whole lot of power there, man, because the thing was toting. But anyway, and shout out to Sluggers and Putters for hosting their Eclipse thing that they had.
Oswaldo Cabrera with a double.
Yeah.
Just barely snuck it into the gap.
So shout out to them. I had a great time at their park for the Eclipse, and shout out to Hershey Park because we had a great weekend on Sunday.
Oh yes, shout out to Hershey Park and all the workers up there putting up with even more foolishness.
Yes.
We got Cabrera on second. We got Volpe coming up, so maybe the Yankees can do a little something here. I guess my shout out, I'm going to give it to so Matthew Barr and Natalia. I'm forgetting her last name, but they're the coaches for DeMatha's new Ultimate Frisbee Club. We had the club had their first meeting last week. I wasn't staying around after school last week, but I went to my first practice with them today and had a lot of fun. I got a chance to get on the field and play a little bit when they needed somebody to come in as a sub. So that was fun, and just kind of throwing the Frisbee around and getting some of these kids used to it. And it was actually pretty impressive. There was a lot of newcomers who'd never really played Ultimate Frisbee before, but all of them were able to throw Frisbee pretty well, which made the experience that much more enjoyable. So, it's a brand new club here at DeMatha, and hopefully we can keep growing it and get some more people to come out and enjoying the fun. But I'll be making it out to those practices from time to time and having a blast when I do. So that'll do it for this week's show. Next week, live show on Thursday night during the first round of the NFL draft. Our annual draft podcast. We will be on video for that show, hopefully. Gonna get all of the equipment together.
The fifth annual.
Yeah, the fifth annual live show. So I'm streaming Academic Awards Night at DeMatha the night before.
Of course.
But I'll have all the equipment already set up and tested and everything, and so it'll just be a matter of Thursday getting it up to whatever room we wind up using this year to do the live show, and that should be a lot of fun. Eric will get to host it for the first time.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
And hopefully you all will join us. You can have the draft on your TV and then us on your laptop or mobile device, and you can hear us give our live reactions to all 32 picks of the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft. But until then, this has been episode 277 of the Sports Bars Podcast. For Eric and Evan, I'm Corey Puffett. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you, and you will see us next week.